Good morning, everybody, and we are going live today with Otto Carrillo. Otto is assistant utility horn of the Chicago Symphony, and he's a really good friend of mine. Otto is joining us right now, so let's see if we can find Otto. All right. Waiting for Otto. Hey, good morning, Otto. How are you?
Hey, good morning.
Hey, fantastic. I
I'm
love
good.
your view. Is this your studio?
This is my studio. You can see the big Alp horn hanging in the background there. Yes.
Oh, that is cool. How many feet long is that?
I think it's 13. It's in two parts because it doesn't fit, obviously,
Oh.
on the wall. I don't think it fits in anywhere in my home except for maybe the stairway, but my wife would never let me put that there.
So where do you get an opportunity to play that?
Not very many places. We took it out for one of the horn gatherings for my studio when they came over from DePaul one time, and I've played it a few times, of course. And I have a trumpet mouthpiece adapter to it so my wife can play as well.
Man, that's so cool. I mean, have you ever thought about that solidarity at 8 that we're doing? You know, that's like this thing that everyone's doing around the city as a way to kind of recognize the first responders and the workers and the nurses and the doctors and everything. Getting out your Alp horn and just giving it a good toot.
I think once this is all over, I'm going to take it out and blow a few notes on it outside. Let everybody know that, things are back. Who knows?
Well, I'll count on that. It'll be like the Call of Boromir.
Well, that's what I said to my students. It'd be like Gimli at Helm's Deep, if another Lord of the Rings thing. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I love the Hobbits, man. Those are great books. But yeah, that horn, man. It's just there's something so pure about the sound of the Alp horn. It just like resonates your body or your.
I've seen them, played a few times. When I was at Phil Farkas's place in Bloomington, Indiana, 30 years ago, I had a lesson with him, and that was the first time I played one. And then I think Dave Crable had one for his studio, which I visited. And so, yeah, I always wanted to do it. Plus, I love wood, and it's kind of marrying two things together.
Did you make that?
The Alp horn? No. No. That's way beyond my capabilities.
So, yeah, you are a woodworker, right? That's like
I'm a hobbyist.
Yeah. You've made some mutes. You've made, do you have any of your mutes handy that you could show us?
Yeah. This is my room, so I have everything in here. Let's see. Pull them out. I'll just put two. These are actually two of the latest ones. So I have one of these.
Okay.
Its twin is
Can
the
you hold
one.
it a little further back for us, just so we can see what it looks like? And then the bottom, maybe too.
So the bottom has my brand on it.
The brand.
Yeah, this is one of two that I made. It's maple. The twin is at Orchestra Hall, and then this is a practice mute. This is out of non-conflict rosewood, actually. So, yeah, it works pretty well.
Wow.
I mean, that's the reason I started making these, because I didn't find a practice mute that really worked very well. That was in tune all the way through the range, and I don't know. I figured I can make one. Actually, I have the mute that actually inspired it.
No kidding.
This is my wife's trumpet mute. So she had this from a long time ago, and
wow.
It's just birch veneer. And I knew that they sell this stuff at hardware stores, so that was my first foray into this, is making a mute that was like this. Of course, it's a trumpet mute, but it's very simple. This one's hollow. This doesn't have a tuning tube or anything like that. So I made something like this, very crude at first, and kind of worked, and that just started everything else out.
How many mutes did you cut in half to figure out how they worked?
Oh man, well, you draw it on paper, and well, actually, the first one I put wrapping paper around like a Lewis mute, I think.
Oh, no kidding.
Just to see what the dimensions were.
Wow.
And wrapping paper is so thin you can cut it easily, and it's big. So I did that and saw what the shape was, with how it looked on two dimensions, and then it kind of started that way.
Wow. Yeah, because I was always wondering, how do you measure a cone?
Well, there's math to it that's involved. There's a lot of formulas. I mean, just you can look them online and how to figure that out. But the last mutes, like this one, for sure, I had the height and the base, whatchamacallit, radius, diameter of both the top and the bottom, and also the height, like I said, and the slope. that I wanted. So you just put all that stuff in there, and then of course, you have to cut it. So your machinery is a little bit kind of trial and error sort of thing.
Wow, that's fantastic. Did you have to use a jigsaw for the circular piece at the bottom?
Yeah, I use a bandsaw actually. So it's just a blade that spins around and you feed it through. And I made a circle jig so that I can cut the circle really fast and angle it, because the cone is obviously angled. So the piece of wood has to be angled as well, so it fits.
How long did it take you to make that mute? I mean, just like,
it takes about, I mean, if I was in a hurry, I could probably do it in 3 or 4 days, but you have to kind of wait for the glue to dry. And I mean, I don't really babysit it that much. I do maybe 30, 40 minutes, an hour one day, and then I go do other things, you know, like play my horn or whatever. So
yeah, exactly. You know, that thing that we do.
The thing that we do. Yeah. I mean, if I babysat it, I could probably turn it out in like 3 days if I wanted to. It's just the glue that has to dry and things have to be set and whatever. So
were you going for a particular sound when you were making the mutes, or
no? Just basically whatever I get. I mean, I want to make it look pretty, no doubt about that. But I want it to be in tune, so I just some trial and error stuff. But no, not going for a real particular sound. Most of the mutes have a different sound because probably of their material or how far they go in. I mean, that affects everything. There's no science really behind it, to be honest.
Yeah. Wow. It's just kind of intuition.
It's intuition and just imitating what I liked in the other mutes that I have. So.
Oh man, that's awesome. Well, I mean, like, let's just start from the top. Like, how did you start music? I mean, what were your earliest memories of music in your life?
Well, I have 3 older brothers, and each of them had an instrument placed in their hand by my parents, who are not musicians, but they're music loving, and they listen to classical music and jazz every day when we were at home, blasting the music out. So each of my brothers got an instrument, and I knew my turn was coming. So my mom and dad always wanted me to play the horn, because they thought it was one of the most beautiful instruments, and they thought that I had a really good ear compared to my other brothers because I could whistle really well as a young boy, and I could remember tunes very well. So they put it in my hand. It was just something that was forced upon me, basically, and I was willing to participate. Yeah. And yeah, I got a private teacher right away, learned how to read music and play the horn at the same time. And then a year later, as my brothers were already playing piano, I also started to learn how to play piano. So it sort of kind of fell in line.
About how old were you when
I was 9 at the time. Yeah.
So you learned piano when you were about 10, but then did you stick with the piano for a while?
Yeah, I stuck with it through high school.
Oh.
Played a little bit. I mean, I never amounted to anything that, you know, I could show off nowadays. I can play the piano, but nothing amazing. So
I'm so jealous of those guys that can just sit down and just play anything or accompany their students.
Incredible. Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that, especially accompany students. But other than maybe faking my way through a Mozart concerto, a very easy version, I can't do anything like that.
I can play the left hand.
Yeah.
I can play the bass line. Maybe a chord here and there.
I know. It's incredible skills that people have. I guess you could say the same thing about playing the horn. So
who were your teachers on the horn?
Well, I had a few kind of band director teachers. I had it's funny, I was just thinking about it this morning. I met my first teacher probably about 30 years ago. So I started 40 years ago almost now. And I met him about 10 years later. I mean, I knew his name, and he was a local band director kind of a guy. He wasn't even really a horn player. But he taught me how to read music. His name was Richard Rose.
Okay.
And then I had another teacher who was a trombone player. I guess he was band director. And then my first real French horn teacher, like big time person, was Ethel Merker. And that was when I was in high school. So she's a name that's familiar to a lot of people in the city that are maybe the older generation. She used to sub in the orchestra a lot in the Chicago Symphony and play a lot of jingles. She was in the NBC orchestra. I'm not sure if she played with Toscanini. I imagine she did. But she was a character, real personality, and someone who, like I said, a lot of the older generation would probably remember.
She played in the Chicago Symphony during the Second World War. Is that correct?
Oh, wow. I doubt, I would say later than that because
Okay.
she's not of that generation. She just passed away in 2012, I think.
Oh, wow, okay.
And she was in her 80s. So I think that would have been too early. I know she played when Dale came to town. She was maybe playing extra, and then she played more extra. So and there's a lot of controversy whether she was actually a member or not. And,
Did she play principal at all, or was it
no,
section?
no,
Okay.
she played extra.
Okay.
Yeah, she was never really an actual full-blooded member of the orchestra. There was a lot of actually some controversy about that because she always said she was, but then Norm Schweikert kindly disputed that myth in one of the horn calls, I think.
Oh, okay.
Not, not in a way of pointing it out.
Yeah, not
so
vindictively. It
but,
was just kind of just, hey, this is the facts. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, back then a lot of the people were appointed in their positions. There wasn't really an audition, so it was a little loose. People would have 1-year positions for subbing in, and they were maybe called extra members or something like that. So I think that's what she was.
Okay. Wow. So
Anyway,
I mean,
so she was
regardless, she played in the Chicago Symphony, and she was your teacher. And what did you learn from her? Like, what were some of the lessons that really stuck out? What memories do you have of her?
Well, she put a lot of repertoire through me, and she really taught me just how to sing on the horn, basically. I didn't really know a lot of repertoire, and she basically put a lot of that through me, a lot of orchestral things as well. We listened to a lot of things. I remember taking drives with her to go see like Phil Farkas. We went to see Paul Tervelt in Milwaukee. And I remember one time she had Eric Terwilliger on the phone because he was a student of hers as well.
Wow.
And I remember him playing through the phone something, I don't know if it was Siegfried call, and it was about the loudest playing I've ever heard in my life over the phone. Yeah. So yeah, she was a character. We talk a lot about repertoire and that sort of thing. So it was pretty fascinating to me. She would actually come to my house at the beginning when I was in high school, which is unheard of now, for a teacher of that stature to come to their people's homes for an hour. She'd use our phone and call her messages and make herself very comfortable there.
She's like, "Do you mind if I just grab some tea and some cookies from your cupboard?" Yeah.
She was a character. Her and my mom had some interesting words with each other at some point. I mean, I remember one time. I was kind of a goof off. Horn was kind of important in my life, but it wasn't the focus of my life. I like to play baseball, and I remember one time after school, I was chatting with some friends in front of my house, and she came up and it was lesson time, and I completely forgot. Felt like a fool, sitting outside of my home completely in a different world, so but yeah, she was a really,
she grabbed you by the ear and tugged you.
Yeah, right.
Get your horn out. We're going
inside now. Yes.
So I guess so you're from Chicago. You're born and raised in Chicago?
I was born in Guatemala.
Okay.
And moved to Illinois when I was about 3.
But I mean, Chicago has been your home ever since.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, what am I saying? 3. I moved to the Oak Park area when I was 3. I moved to Illinois when I was about 1.5 years. So.
1.5 years. So yeah, I mean, for all intensive purposes,
I'm pretty much a Chicagoan. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I mean, it must just be so crazy to be from here and then play in your hometown orchestra.
It's a dream come true. It's wonderful. I love this place, and I'm so happy that everything's worked out really well, because it's not only a great orchestra, it's great people, and I get to see my parents and my brothers and everything. So yeah, it's a great thing. It's what I wish upon for anybody.
I mean, it's one of those things that, like, it's just so rare. Like, I can't say I know many people, unless they're maybe a New Yorker that plays with the New York Philharmonic. I guess there are a couple of Chicagoans, like Stephanie Jung. She plays with the Chicago Symphony. She's from Chicago.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, 4 of the people in the horn section are from this area. Yeah. Dan, Jim, and Dave. So it's incredible that it all happened that way.
That's crazy. And honestly, I consider myself a Midwesterner. I would. I grew up coming to the museums when I was a kid, so I mean, I have that connection. We drive down at Christmas time and spend a week in the city, and that's we wouldn't go to Detroit, you know, we'd go to Chicago.
Nice. You're from Lansing, right? I can never
Yeah.
remember. Lansing or Kalamazoo.
Oh, right about here, you know.
Right.
Always carrying.
Yeah, Lansing was in the news yesterday, unfortunately.
Uh-oh.
Oh, we won't go into that. So.
Okay. Well, all good things, right?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's one of those places that's got a car, you know, factory. It had a couple car factories in the university.
Yeah.
So you've got, you know, kind of the two, you know, I would say the two industries that brought people together. So there's a lot of diversity in the community.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course you've got Motown with the music. So you've got that kind of,
sure.
that influence, you know. Stevie Wonder is from Lansing. He went to the school, well, maybe not from Lansing, but he studied at the School of Blind in Lansing.
Oh, wow.
And then we can also claim Magic Johnson, you know, from the Lakers.
Right. Michigan State.
Yeah. So could you talk a little bit about sports and your love and your passion for sports? You said you were a baseball player growing up?
Yeah, I played a lot of baseball, Little League, up until high school. And then, I mean, the horn sort of took over. Now I play a lot of basketball. I do a lot of pickup games, kind of organized pickup games, I guess you'd call it, with a bunch of guys that are my age, a little younger, maybe a little older, which is kind of nice. But I didn't play basketball when I was in high school a whole lot. I did some intramurals. But yeah, it's just a sport that I really love because it keeps me in shape and it's fun. You know, we have an alley in the back behind our garage, and I don't have a hoop on the garage, but I have this portable basketball system, which I haven't used in about 5 years. And I just pulled it out for this whole thing because, you know, just to do something, and it's been great. I've been having a good time playing on that thing.
So a portable system, meaning just like a hoop that kind of rolls out?
Yeah, it rolls out. It's big. It's really heavy. I mean, you're supposed to fill the base with water.
Yeah.
It has a hole in it, so it hasn't been able to hold the water. But I just put some big planters on top filled with dirt, and I mean they're really heavy, so it stays put.
So no dunking, right? You know, that's.
I mean, you can adjust the height. You can do it down to 8 feet, and sure, I don't even have to jump to dunk. No. My dunking days, well, I never really had them, but they're pretty much gone.
So, I mean, all right. So one thing I heard about you before I met you was from Ryan Anthony. And Ryan, you know, Ryan's like one of my dear friends from the Dallas Symphony. And he's like, oh, man, you know how Ryan talks. Oh, man, you know, yeah, Otto. Yeah, he's like, man, he's just an unbelievable athlete. I'll never forget him. You know, and he's like talking about you guys in a summer music festival playing basketball, or maybe it was baseball, but he just said like Otto is an unbelievable athlete. And I was like, yeah, sure. I you know, maybe he's a good athlete for a musician, right? Because, you know, we're all kind of like competitive, and, you know, someone maybe played soccer as a kid, but like I saw you play softball last summer, and like some of the leaps and the dives and stuff and the catches you were making, like you made this one snowball catch, right, where the ball was just sitting on top of your mitt like a snow cone, and I think you were like horizontal to the ground when you caught it.
Wow.
And I was just like, like one of those things. But it's so crazy, man. Like yeah, your hand-eye coordination. And Sue always talks about how she always throws keys or anything at you, and you always just catch it at the last minute.
Wow, that's high praise, I guess. I don't know. I think I emulated a New York Yankees third baseman when I was in Little League. His name was Greg Nettles, and he was just a fantastic third baseman. He would dive so much, and I'd see all these games, of course, like at the end of the week. They would only play one game per week on like Game of the Week if they were even televised, and I emulated that. So when I was in Little League, I was known to be the guy who dived for anything, and, you know, a lot of Little League kids wouldn't do that, but I didn't want to let a chance pass me by. So I don't know, maybe that stuck with me or something. But I remember playing with basketball with Ryan, and we also played softball. I think every week we would try to get some softball games together, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, I was 19 years old at that point, probably some of my peak physical abilities. So I'm glad that he remembers that.
Was that NOI?
That was NRO, National Repertory Orchestra in Colorado.
Every time we talk about it, I always guess the wrong one. I'm like,
no worries.
RO.
No worries.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I had a good time there. It was a fun festival. 19 years old, you know. Wow.
what did you kind of appreciate about those music festivals? I mean, for me, a lot of my friends for the rest of my life have been from music festivals. You know, friendships, colleagues, things that I look back and I'm just like, man, I've got these relationships that are still with me. What do you take from some of those festivals?
Well, met my wife at Tanglewood, so that's a wonderful memory and that we had there. We actually visited back in 2014 with our children just to reminisce a little bit as part of another trip. But yeah, no, those festivals were amazing. I only did a few, but they were some of the bigger ones. And I was young, so I think I was a little overwhelmed by maybe the talent around me. I maybe didn't feel like I was up to the talent, but that was good because it made me see what the whole world and I guess the country was looking at the time, the talent levels. So also made me appreciate the commitment people have for their craft. You know, I mean, seeing people that are sort of close to your age performing at an extremely high level is amazing to want to emulate and to learn from.
Wow. Did you have any like lessons with any of the Boston Symphony guys, or did you have any memories of getting to sub with the Boston Symphony or work with Bernstein or anybody?
Yeah, we had our side-by-side concert with them like we always, that I think everybody does when they go to Tanglewood. It's Tanglewood on Parade. And Sue, her name was Sue Drake back then, was playing with, that's when I first met her as well. She went to NOI as well, the couple weeks before Tanglewood, so we got to know each other that summer as well. Yeah, that was really great. We got master classes from each of the members of the Boston Symphony, which was great. I remember at NRO we had Michael Sachs was there, principal trumpeter of Cleveland. He and Dave Crable gave us a master class. Also NRO at that time was partnered with Summit Brass, so Summit Brass was there for a couple weeks before NRO started. So all the brass players from NRO got to do that. And then they were hanging out after Summit Brass ended and I think stayed with us and gave us some classes and whatever. So yeah, no, it's great to see, you know, what the wider world of brass playing is like, because I guess that as a 19, 20-year-old, I really didn't know so much the Chicago style. I was starting to learn it, but it was nice to hear other people's opinions about how to play. And
yeah, especially Dave Crable, because Dave played with the Chicago Symphony.
Right.
He was like co-principal with Farkas, maybe, or assistant principal.
I think he was assistant principal. Yeah. Yeah, he's a really young guy.
Wow.
Pretty amazing.
Unbelievable. Tell me about your like university studies. You studied at Northwestern, correct?
Yeah, I went to DePaul as an undergrad, and that was because of Ethel Merker. Ethel was teaching there at the time, and actually DePaul was, I had 5 choices of schools, and DePaul was sort of on my low end, just because liberal arts wise, I mean, I thought I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, and I thought I should probably go to a school that was really known for their liberal arts. So Northwestern was high on my list. Oberlin was high on my list because they have you had to get into the actual school and the actual music and the conservatory.
Oh, wow.
So, but in the end, DePaul sort of won me over because of how close they were, because Ethel was there, and I kind of wanted to be close to home.
Yeah.
And I knew the sort of the building very well, and I knew some of the people that played there. So I knew that would be comfortable for me getting out of high school and being a fish out of water. So in the end, I went to DePaul and studied with Ethel for a little bit.
I mean, as a student, sometimes it's overwhelming because like, there's like, all right, not only is there a new course load, new group of classmates, like new expectations, but then it's a new city on top of that. And then like, you know, a new school. So something familiar sometimes is maybe a better place for somebody because they only have to work on, okay, new classmates, new course load, new expectations instead of everything and living alone.
Right. We're going through that with my daughter right now. She's 18 and, you know, she got accepted to 2 really prestigious schools. One of them is in Baltimore and Northwestern, which is here. And, you know, it's hard to decide on things. And in the end, she decided Northwestern, thankfully. Oh, wow. So I'm very happy about that because she'll be close to home. She can, you know, see us if she needs us, or, you know, we can be there, but not, you know, intrude upon her, but we can help her out if she needs it. So,
Yeah.
so I'm very happy about that. Though there's something to be said about going close to home. I have 3 brothers, and 2 of them, one of them went to Northwestern, one of them went to the University of Chicago, so they stayed close. And the other one, whose personality is exactly the type of person who needs a little bit more, I guess, independence, was my other brother, who went to the University of Colorado. So,
Oh, wow.
so he was also a bike rider too, so he wanted to train in the mountains. But yeah, he was the type of spirit that needed a little bit more room.
Oh, wow. So, I mean, that would be something to think about for young students, like looking for schools.
Sure.
Like, what do you need? Do you need a little more independence? Do you need, you know, this kind of familiarity? Also, like, you know, how would you recommend for a student to choose a college?
Wow. Well, I mean, it's usually all about the teacher. That
Uh,
should be the first and foremost. If you connect with the teacher, hopefully you get a lesson
so
beforehand.
I think that's really important to get the lesson. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, reach out. You know, I remember writing letters, like handwritten letters, and you know, sending them off to my teachers. You know, you probably
Nice.
do. Now it's just like, are they on Facebook? You know, here,
Right.
let me just shoot them a personal message or a direct message on Instagram.
No, that's important. I mean, that's going to be your connection for the next few years or whatever. Yeah, I'd probably look at the teacher first, and then just the situation in terms of the living situation, where it is, what city it is in. I mean, if you're a orchestral-minded player, you want to go to probably a big city, I would think, that has a great orchestra. Difficult to do that in a place that is in the middle of the state that might not have things. I mean, even the University of Illinois has a great hall when they have visiting orchestras, and and it's close to Chicago. So, you know, something like that is not out of the question.
Yeah.
Of course. But being in the city, I mean, I when I was a kid, I didn't really go to the city a whole lot, except for, you know, Jazz Fest or things like that. But yeah, going to DePaul, you get to know the city really well. So, and now I feel like if I were to go to, let's say, Dallas, I would be, I think, a little bit weirded out by just the newness of things. I'm not one for major changes, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I move to a new city, it takes me a couple months to kind of figure out, like, okay, where's the grocery store? And like, who am I going to hang out with? What's, you know, where's my gym? And, you know, I always like to be close to the hall because that's where I'm going to be like walking to and from. And then I make like a little circle and then another circle. It's like,
that's good. You have a lot of experience, yeah, doing that sort of thing.
yeah. Could you tell a little bit about your studies at Northwestern with Gail? What was it like to study with her? I mean, she's an incredible teacher.
Yeah, she was. I feel kind of bad because I think I wasn't the most ideal student. I went through a little bit of an embouchure change on my own. About well, they're on the quarter system, so this was during Christmas, and so I had one quarter with her, and then the rest of the 2 next quarters, it was kind of just putting out the fire, whatever you know was happening with my change and what I couldn't do. So I feel bad that I probably frustrated her a lot. But I do remember she was the one who introduced me to the Chantal book. And I use that a lot now. I use it with my students. She was, you know, into efficiency of playing and getting your body to be, you know, less interference with getting your body in the way of playing. So that really rubbed off on me, I think, a little bit. But no, it was great. She's I call her one of my big influences in my life of playing.
Yeah, she's unbelievable. I mean, number one, just how efficient she plays here, but then how she can make, like, she can play so loud and, you know, she can play so strong and has such great endurance. And I feel like, hey, like, I remember she was smaller than me and and a few years older than me. And I remember like she played Mahler 6 and I'm like trying to keep up. I'm like, wait a second, how does that work? You know, I want to learn that. I want to do that.
No, it's an epitome of, you know, size doesn't matter, strength doesn't matter, physical strength sort of thing doesn't really matter.
Can I just back up real quick? Let's see if I can find this book, the Chantal book. I have it on my shelf.
Yeah, I have it right over here too.
Yeah, it's I know Hans Klepsch is watching. Hey Hans, and this is, he just was curious about the Joseph Chantal, and it's just scales. It's like scales in every keys, and it does like thirds, fourths, fifths, sixths, just 8 different kind of patterns.
Yeah, I think it's important to. I mean, it's nuts and bolts playing. It's fundamental playing. I feel like it actually makes your scale recognition much easier, so that when you're playing stuff, your fingers can do more automatic work and not to really think about it. I mean, I have a really hard time with, I don't know if it's because I'm so right hand dominated, but with my fingering, especially this finger. I know a lot of people with a ring finger have issues like me, but anything that is involving that sort of movement is difficult for me sometimes. Or maybe I'm just hung up a little bit more with it. I'm not sure. But it was funny, my wife and I, we've been giving each other etudes to do during this pandemic, and a lot of her etudes, because she's a trumpet player, are a little bit more technically involved than what we'd have, and they involve that finger. So it's been nice to play these etudes, and my sight reading's gotten a lot better too.
Mine too. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's funny like how like sometimes with the orchestra I'm really working on a specific skill, and then now that I'm like not doing that every day, it's like now I'm working on these other skills, and I realize my transposition's getting better, my fingering's getting better, my scale recognition, the patterns. It's like all those sort of things are improving just because I'm doing something different, and I'm sure that'll transfer back to the orchestral playing. So what were your first auditions like?
Wow. You know, I made a list of all my auditions not too long ago just to remember, and I don't know if I got them all right. I mean, I tend to keep some of my things from auditions, you know, lists and that sort of thing. My first audition was probably when I was with Ethel, and I was trying to remember this actually because I was playing in Utah not too long ago, and somebody in Utah, Steve Proser, he was playing in the Illinois, I'm going to get this right, Illinois Philharmonic, Illinois affiliate. They play in the south suburbs in Chicago. And I think it was for principal or third. It was one of the high horn parts. And I mean, I literally didn't even know Beethoven 7 that well. It was just like I had started to play it. I knew the piece, I just didn't know the excerpt. And Ethel thought my skills were a little bit better than what I knew them to be. And she thought I'd win the job without a problem. I mean, I was 18 years old at the time. So I go to the audition and I hear people playing Beethoven 7 really well and going, oh, okay, I don't think I'm going to win this job. B, I don't even think I can play this excerpt the way they're playing it. So that was my first audition. And so you learn from that, right?
Yeah.
Who knows? I think the next few auditions, I took some local ones. Northwest Indiana comes to mind. And I think I did pretty okay. I didn't win the job. I got into maybe the finals of the next round. And actually, John Schreckengos, who I think still plays there, he told me something about my articulation, which is totally correct. He said my articulation was, maybe he didn't use these words, maybe I'm remembering it incorrectly, but he said something that it was pretty thuddy. Huh. And it was, there's no doubt, it was a big problem in my playing. So I was working on it and hopefully fixing it and that sort of thing. But I remember that stood out. But I mean, at least I made it past the first parts of the audition, which, you know, a lot of people, they don't get to that level at that young age, I guess. But anyway, so that was a nice experience. But then, yeah, I had several auditions later that, you know, you fly to, you get the room in the hotel, you rent a car, and, you know, just nothing happens. Nothing positive comes of it because of the way you perform, which is unfortunate. But you learn from each one of them, of course. You learn what works, what doesn't work, how you need to prepare. I remember the one thing that started to get me better at doing auditions is when the mini disc player came out, which people of my age and maybe a little younger remember. Yep. So in this mini disc, you're able to splice yours wherever recording you have, and you can move it around as a digital file sort of thing. But it's on a kind of a cassette. Yeah. Anyway, so I remember being able to splice some of my just audition takes, not while I was playing the audition live, but while I was practicing them, next to the actual orchestral snippet. So I can hear myself playing and then the orchestral snippet. Not that I was trying to imitate the recording, but so I can hear the style and see if I was playing that style without the orchestra. See if you can imagine the orchestra in my playing, basically. So that really started to help me out to get a sense of how I'm supposed to perform these excerpts and how just to change gears at an audition, what to say and what kind of plan I should have.
Wow. Fantastic. I mean, that plan is really crucial, I think, for audition performance, right? If you have that plan and you're able to stick to that plan, then you're able to execute.
Yeah.
Do you have any stories about like auditions that you felt like you really prepared hard for and you really had some success at, or what did you learn about the horn? What did you learn about yourself while you're doing these?
Well, I mean, I've never been one to expect greatness right away from myself. I feel like if I lower my expectations, I'll be happily impressed if something works out. Maybe that's called negative reinforcement. I'm not sure if you can call it that, but I had a few auditions where, let's say, they were at the per service level orchestra. Like I took an audition in Memphis, Cedar Rapids, Harrisburg Symphony, and there was a fourth one in there. I can't remember now. And I had success with all of them. And I took them all in one summer. Knoxville. I didn't know, what to expect, basically. I had no clue. I was out of college, and the embouchure situation was fixed, or whatever you call it. It was at the, it was guns blazing at this point. And so I took these auditions and had success with them, and thought to myself, okay, well, if I'm having success now, maybe I should go to the next level of orchestra and see how that works out. So some of that started to work out as well. Some of it didn't. But yeah, I had some auditions where, things were clicking, but then something was not quite there all the way through.
Yeah.
I think one in San Antonio, I was in the finals for. I felt like I was doing really well. And then, in the finals, they might have asked for an excerpt that wasn't quite up to stuff for me. And I'm not to say that eliminated me, but it certainly didn't make it easy for them to pick me. And I had another couple auditions where I made it to the last couple people. I remember the Grand Park audition. I think I was the last couple people there for that one. And yeah, I mean, I knew I was doing something well, which was great. Kind of gave me the hope that I'm on the right track, and maybe there's a few things I need to fix, or maybe there's some big things I need to fix. But yeah, just kept working at it. I mean, I took a CSO audition, I think in 1998.
Oh, wow.
Something around there. And it was I think it was for the same, it was second horn perhaps. Okay. And that was kind of a waste of everybody's time sort of audition. Unfortunately, I was so keyed up. I mean, it was the hall that I had been watching concerts in.
Oh, wow.
And with people that I knew sitting back there that were people I respected, and very much so, kind of hero-like respect.
Yeah.
And so I was too keyed up for that. But the next, the one in 2000 where we won, Jim and I was able to calm down a lot more. It was also in Buntrock, our prelim.
Yeah.
And actually, I thought that was a big help, because I was always afraid of playing on stage, knowing that how big it was and how kind of dry it was for the acoustics. But in Buntrock's sort of like an ego chamber. It makes you sound really nice. It's kind of warm, resonant sound. So I enjoyed that. I thought that was my best ever audition round for any of the auditions I've ever taken. That prelim round, I knew that after I played that, I was like, whoa, hey, I impressed myself. That's good. I don't know what's going to get me, but we'll see. And it's funny because I remember I was number 27 of 28 that day. So we were downstairs, and so the committee was going to vote on our round of people, and then they were going to go home. So I remember sitting in there's a green room downstairs in the CSO basement, and then there's like a little lobby that's in front of that green room. We were all congregating there, awaiting our news. And before we got the news from the audition personnel, Dale Clevenger opens the doors, these double doors. He pushes them open, and he gives me this big thumbs up, and he just leaves. Because he knew who I was from Civic. And I was like, is that because I got into the finals? Or is that because I just did well? Or how did he know who I was? I thought it was anonymous. So, I mean, it was, and obviously I made it to the finals. I was the only one that day that had made it to the finals. So I was the first person at the audition. So that was kind of a nice thing and a surreal moment. I'd never made the finals of a major audition. Actually, I'd never really taken I guess I'd taken Pittsburgh and St. Louis before that, but
Wow.
in terms of like the big five, whatever you call them, orchestras, I'd never taken one before.
Wow. Unbelievable. So what about that audition? I mean, first of all, they probably had like hundreds of people that showed up for that position.
No, there were 80, I think, 80
80.
something.
That's
Yeah,
still a
maybe
lot.
Jim could tell you. Yeah, I know. Now it's actually nowadays you get less and less people. Maybe I'm not sure why that is, but yeah. I mean, the percussion audition of that time, when Ted Atkatz won the job as a section member, I think there was like 150 people.
Wow.
And I used to actually work those auditions. I used to be the person that would greet you at the door and take you to your room. And I did a lot of odd jobs with the symphony just to do something.
Was that when you were newly in the orchestra, or was that when you?
No, that's when I was in Civic.
Okay.
A few years before that. So yeah, I remember Jeff Stang. Actually, Ann McQuarrie was the one that recommended me to work with him. He used to be the auditions coordinator, and I would go help people out in the office, and then I would be there at audition day just to help out.
Oh, no kidding. Oh, man. So you heard a lot of auditions probably before you actually even auditioned.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Wow. And then, so tell me about when you said like you knew you impressed yourself, what about your playing was impressive? Like, or not really impressive, but like what were you confident about? Like what skills did you feel like you demonstrated?
I felt like I could play the way I could play normally. I mean, that's just I believed in myself. I didn't know what level it was at, but I felt like I did what I wanted to do. I was able to execute what I could do in the practice room, and whether or not that was at the highest level, I didn't know. So that's what impressed me. I mean, most of these auditions, you're just trying to do that, I think. And many of them, I couldn't. I was too nervous, too distracted, whatever you call it, too surprised by the surprises, that sort of thing. In this audition for the prelims, I felt like I sounded good because of the room, first of all, and I just felt like I was able to do everything I wanted to do.
Wow, fantastic.
Maybe not everything, that it's percentages, but.
What about nerves? You mentioned nerves a little bit. What do you do to kind of calm yourself? What advice do you give to students to deal with nerves?
Wow. Well, like I said, I'm a lowered expectation kind of a guy. So, I mean, I used a lot of visualization back in the day. I don't do it so much now.
Okay.
And I mean, I've always been in decent shape. Maybe that helps a little bit with my breathing and calming me down. I don't have a very high heartbeat when it's just a resting heartbeat on a very high. But I mean, I was never the shaky kind of a nervous guy. I just my heartbeat would go, no doubt, and that might affect things. But being distracted, that's the big thing. Yeah. I mean, play your excerpts very slowly, and if you need to test anything out, just test the openings. That's what I started to do at my day of auditions, just that sort of thing. Being beforehand, you want to be prepared as possible, of course, because as a Boy Scout, a former Boy Scout, I mean, that's the motto, be prepared. You want to make sure that things are being dealt with, every possible little issue that you can come up with, and you have to tape yourself. You have to listen to your feedback. Nowadays, I have my students play mock auditions, for each other, that sort of thing. That's great training for just day of simulation that you can do, so what is going to happen in terms of your body, how it's going to react, at least in a little bit. It may not recreate the situation exactly, but just to give yourself that simulation that your body might, start to go into a state of panic or whatever.
Yeah. Could you talk a little bit about your body being in good condition? You said you have a lower heart rate because you're in good shape.
I don't know. I mean, I think my whole family does. We have kind of maybe my mom has a very low resting heart rate. I mean, I don't call myself an athlete. I like to maintain shape. So, yeah, I don't know. I like to keep moving, I guess. Basketball is a big part of that.
What does that do for you? Like, first of all, talk about the balance between sports and music.
Well, as we know, there's a lot of similarities. I mean, I love playing sport like basketball because you don't even feel like you're working out. I used to run and didn't really particularly enjoy it just because it felt like I was struggling all the time. I felt like if you're not struggling and in pain, you're not really doing much. But in basketball, you forget about that because it's such a adrenaline joy that you're doing when you're playing as a team. I mean, you can do it as an individual too. I mean, there's nothing like seeing a really far away tough shot go in. It's just like the biggest high you can get. So I mean, I love that. And in terms of music, I'm not sure how it would apply for, I guess, little things. I mean, you can make connections for concentration and repetitive motions, being in the flow, being in the zone, that sort of thing. It's a very real thing. I mean, I've been in a zone where I can make a certain number of shots in a row, and then other days I can't even hit one of those, that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, being in the zone, I mean, you hear about that being advertised as a thing. I'm not sure I ever really felt that as a musician or feel that. Maybe there's a correlation there. I'm not sure I'd call it that, but yeah, there's feelings of flow where you're doing what you, like I said about the CS audition, you're doing what you normally can do, and you're doing it in front of people.
Could you talk about having to react to something? So you're in the moment and you're reacting, and it's not how you prepared, but you're able to adjust and be flexible and kind of catch things. I mean, I think that's something you have to kind of learn in sports, and it's also something that you do on the job in our orchestra.
Sure. Yeah. No, I mean, we obviously in orchestra, very highly skilled players who I'm amazed at the reaction time for people that are able to adjust so quickly, or to just not even adjust, but to just almost innately know what's going to happen beforehand. I'm always fascinated by that. If it's just happenstance or if it's actually calculated, and probably a product of both that people are doing. And I've certainly gotten better at that, especially playing assistant utility. You jump around the section and you perform all these roles. It's difficult. There's no doubt about it. If you're not playing in one position and then all of a sudden you have to do it on the fly. But it's a nice challenge. It certainly increases your receptors and your instincts and all that sort of thing.
You just said something that like really made me think of Dan. And Dan I think Dan's watching today. Hi, Dan Gingrich. But
Hey,
you said players are able to intuitively predict what's going to happen next. And I think Dan's kind of like the prime example of someone that can just know, hey, like intuitively, this is supposed to be this loud. It's supposed to be like brassy here or kind of soft here. And like, I mean, also too, he can just predict what I'm going to do before I do it. It's, hey, Dan says hi. I mean, could you just talk a little bit about that aspect you see in Dan, like his just maneuverability? And
it's pretty amazing. It's like Jedi mind trick,
yes,
sort of
exactly. Yeah.
Using the Force. No, Dan's a great example of that. I never feel like Dan's doing anything that's out of place. It's always a blend. It's always fitting in, and it's subtle sometimes, but it's amazing to hear next to you. And you learn so much. Once you think you've got something in your own playing, you hear that, you're like, that's another level. That people just don't comprehend, really. No, I mean, I think as horn players, we sometimes think of the primal concern of just getting the notes and sounding good, but there's a lot of other things obviously that are involved that people obviously do, but you can't almost teach it until you're in the situation, you're hearing somebody do it.
Wow. Yeah, and Dan's one of those guys that I'm like, wow, how did he figure that out? It just seems like it's beyond the ability to play the instrument. It's beyond being a good musician. It's like kind of like that Jedi mind trick, like that you said so well. Right. Could you talk about teamwork and what you've learned from your sports teams, your sports background, and how that applies to the horn section?
Okay. Well, I mean, it's funny. We're a group of introverts, I think. Now with you, it's a little different. So I've always been an introvert in my life, and once I play sports, I sort of become a hybrid of an extrovert introvert sort of a person. I've always been like the loudest cheer on, whatever you call it, cheerleader for a team, and it's something that just comes out because I love supporting people when they're doing something in a group like that. So I think that's what we do with each other.
Yeah.
Maybe might not be so much vocally, but I think there's a big support system there, which I love. It goes back to the dream come true statement that I said about playing in the city. It's not only just playing in the city with a great orchestra, but this group of people that are with you. They have your back. They treat you like family with respect. It's an amazing situation.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, the horn section's kind of the envy of the orchestra. Everyone just is like, man, you guys get along so well, and you work so well together, and you all like each other and go out for dinners. It's just one of those things that I'm just so lucky to be a part of and to be with you guys.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing.
Could you talk about how sports is a stress relief for you? You said there's no greater feeling than watching a faraway shot go in. And I can't help but to think, like, you're not thinking about that concert. You're not thinking about that rehearsal. You're not thinking about that, on the horn, we miss notes, right? Like, and when I'm playing sports, I'm not thinking about that note that I missed.
Right. Yeah, no, it takes you into some other plane for sure. I was always a hacky sacker too, as growing up in college and in high school. And I can juggle on the hacky sack pretty well. I don't do it like a traditional hacky sacker. I play like a soccer player with my knees and the front of my feet. And I can do this for a long time. And it takes me to a realm of concentration that I rarely get into. Also, woodworking does that too, where you're concentrating on the tasks so focused that, of course, you're thinking about safety and everything, but it's just you and your task, and that's an amazing feeling. So yeah, it takes me totally away from horn playing. I mean, we need that, if that's what you're trying to get at. I mean, just the stress that we have day to day. I mean, I feel like my stress levels have gone up gradually over my years. I was hoping the opposite would happen as I got older, more mature, that things would lighten up. But I feel like they're more pronounced nowadays, just because maybe I feel like I'm getting a little bit older. Things are a little bit more difficult to sometimes execute. Maybe not. Maybe some things are easier, but maybe my mind is thinking about it a little bit more. It's sort of like when little kids are first learning something, they don't have any fear about what they're doing because they don't know the consequences. So maybe that's part of it. Who knows?
Well, it's like being a marathon runner. I hear that marathon runners really peak in their late 30s, mid to late 30s. And it's because in their early 20s, their body's at peak condition, but they don't have the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, like when I hear about these runners that peak in their mid to late 30s, it's like, yeah, their body's still in great shape, but now all of a sudden they have this life experience and this wisdom to kind of catch up with that, physical form. And then after, their 30s, their mind is like, they've learned even more things, but then their body, it takes more work to stay in shape.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Could you talk a little bit about just what being in shape does for your playing? Like, what does it do for your breathing, and what does it do for recovery for the swelling of your lips? What does it do? Does it make your horn playing easier?
I hope so. I'm not sure. I mean, after a night of basketball on Wednesday night, I come to Thursday morning rehearsals and I'm beat. So I'm so tired. My whole body's tired. I know my playing is tired, but I don't think I can give that up on Wednesday nights, Tuesday nights as well. But I don't know. I really can't quantify the amount it helps my playing. I imagine it does, just being in shape and being able to take a deep breath and not have to struggle with that, I suppose.
Yeah. I
mean, we don't need to have great, efficient hearts to play the horn. And we don't need to be, BMI of perfect amount, but, it certainly helps to be able to carry the horn, at least hold the horn off my leg for a certain amount of time, unless I'm playing my triple horn, which is incredibly heavy. But it's helpful to do that. Yeah, the recovery time is, I'm not sure. I recover less quickly now. There's no doubt about that, especially basketball. I'm more fatigued for longer periods of time after playing. So in my horn playing, I find that to be the case as well. Maybe it's the way I've been playing. I'm not sure. But yeah, it does kind of surprise me sometimes that, whoa, I'm still a little tired now. Back in 20 years ago, this wasn't the case. So that's just the natural part of growing up, I suppose.
Okay, we have about 5 minutes left. I want to just go to, you're a teacher, you teach at DePaul now, the school where you studied. What lessons would you like to share with any students that are watching?
Oh my.
Any young musicians?
Any young musicians? Well, I mean, if they're interested in their instrument, I'd say, you know, be as curious as possible about what your instrument is, who plays it, you know, pieces that are out there for horn and that sort of thing. And just be curious and ask a lot of questions of people. Don't be afraid. I mean, there's so much information nowadays that you can get readily at your fingertips. So I don't think that's a problem. But yeah, you know, sees who you can see that plays the horn, like a big horn soloist, and if you like that person, try to imitate some of the things that you hear, or if you don't like that person, go on to the next one and see what you can take from that soloist. Yeah, but listen to a lot of music. I mean, music is, when I was in high school, I collected a lot of CDs. I see a lot of CDs back behind you. I mean, I collected a ton of CDs, and I was a big fan of brass playing. So I collected a lot of things just to get information. It's just all information. If you enjoy playing, you know, why not try to be the best player you can possibly be, regardless of whether or not you think you're going to be doing it as a profession or not.
Wow. Yeah. So regardless of outcomes, you know, you just want to be the best you can in whatever you do. Just like your woodworking or just like your basketball playing, you know, it's you just try to be the best you can because it's fun to be, you know, to try to do your best, right? That's where it's fun.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we always try to do a test, not to get 80%, but to get 100%. Some people, you know, they may push things out of the way so much to get that result. I mean, there's going to be this basketball Bulls series on ESPN, The Last Dance, I think it's called, and I'm so excited to see that. Yep. And to see the personalities and the mentality that went behind just maintaining the Bulls championships. I'm super excited about that because I know a lot about it already, but yeah, I mean, you want to go at something so that you can do the best. Of course, it's most enjoyable when things are, when you can step back and say, yeah, I did my best. I didn't know if I achieved it the best, but I really tried.
Wow, fantastic. Could you recommend a couple albums for us to listen to?
Music?
Yeah, some of your favorite, you know, albums.
Oh boy, let's see. I love the Fritz Reiner recording of Chicago Symphony playing Wagner excerpts from Gotterdammerung, I believe. I have a great recording of Pittsburgh Symphony playing Sibelius symphonies. I think 5 and 4. Yeah. That one I really love.
Yeah, with
let's see. I've got a lot of non-classical music albums that I really like the group Chicago. I really like Chicago 16, I think it is. Let's see. I can go on and on, but for the sake of time, I used to like a band. I still do. I just haven't listened to them in a while. In Seals and Crofts, they're a 70s kind of yacht rock, you know, very easy listening 70s band. I really like them quite a bit. 2 guys singing. Summer Breeze is one of the songs, if anybody remembers that one. So
that's fantastic. Lastly, could you just tell us why are music and the arts so important during this time?
Wow. Okay, let's see if I can do this in 1 minute. Well, I mean, music obviously unites us, and in a great way. I mean, there's so much love that I mean, I think we all use love when we play. It's the biggest thing that I think I put into my horn playing, and not just a sort of singular love. It's a universal love that I spread out. So I think that's something that we can all do in terms of just helping people that are in need right now. You know, people put on videos, people are doing things to play in front of people's houses, that sort of thing. I'm not particularly, that's not really my mission to do that specific things, but for sure, empathy with people that are doing that. It's so important to keep it alive. I mean, with concert halls that have gone silent right now, people need that outlet. There's no doubt about it, and it'll hopefully heal us, and so that when we come back, it'll still be